thank you, Master Bryce.
Absolutely.
And you'll be on my show today, and I really wanted to bring you out here because you have so many expertise in the area of martial arts and also fighting bullies. And I think the current issue is the hate crime against Asians, and I really want to pick your brains on some of the techniques maybe the community can implement to teach them how to speak up, teach them how to fight back, how to protect themselves, and also protect others. And so, yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Well, hey, JD, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure, and anything that we can do to help empower our community, despite the color of our skin, that doesn't have anything to do with me.
Right.
But our whole community, that's what we're here to do. So I do appreciate the opportunity to speak out and to help people that may be having some issues.
Absolutely.
At school, maybe at their workplace, maybe even at home for that matter. So a little bit more about myself. My name is Bryce Leggetti. I've been involved with martial arts since I was 10 years old, actually. So 40 years of my life have been dedicated towards martial arts. My expertise is going to be more in the defensive tactics perspective of self-defense. So it's going to be Krav Maga, which comes from Israel's military, kickboxing, grappling arts that are more meant for self-defense capacity, as well as Kali. I have 5 black belts. They refer to me as Master Bryce here, but you can always call me Bryce, my man. So,
alrighty.
I like to say that I'm an educated man too with an accounting degree. So I do have an analytical mind that we try to bring into self-defense.
So I'm really interested into getting to know bully. I don't believe they were born bullied. There must be something happened to them, and it contributed to them to have this mindset that putting other people down and to getting pleasure.
They may not be born a bully, but they are being bullied. Typically a bully is bullied in the first place. That's where how they learn that behavior, and no one's stopping it at some point, so they think it's going to be okay. Well, obviously, there's probably going to be a lot of hurt that goes along with being bullied. Just imagine being bullied by your dad at home, or your mother, or maybe your big brother, right? So you're going to have some pain going with you to school. Well, that pain has to go somewhere. And sometimes these bullies get pleasure out of inflicting that type of pain and abuse on somebody else. And when they see them cry, or they see them, kind of shield themselves away from, say, that hand coming up, it gives them great pleasure to do that. The unfortunate thing is that, really case by case basis, we're seeing that bullies are bullied in the first place. So if we could shut it down there, then I think we would see a lot better behaviors from just humans in general. But it starts probably at home. A lot of times bullies are looking for certain things, or there's a certain commonality between their victims. And it doesn't matter necessarily the skin color per se, but the commonalities are going to be things like, this kid gets good grades, and this kid wants to make him feel bad about making really good grades. Or maybe this kid looks a little different than me, and for whatever reason, I don't like that. So there's those types of reasons. It could be physical. Maybe they're wearing really thick glasses, and and they're shunned because they look nerdy or what have you. It could be just somebody that's socially awkward, doesn't really know how to speak in a situation like this. So there's so many different things that that the bully is trying to pinpoint and say, this is what makes a good victim. Maybe it's somebody that doesn't even give you eye contact and is just really shy. Because if you have this going to you, how do you perceive me right now?
Interesting, because I always wonder how bullies pick their targets, and what do they define as easy target? Because I don't think they're going to mess up with someone who's going to stand up for themselves.
Absolutely, or you look like you'll defend yourself. That's the other thing, because perception is huge, right? And if this bully perceives me as this is not a victim, they move on to an easy target. I always like to say a bully or a criminal is looking for Bambi.
Right.
They're not looking for Bambi's mom. They're not looking for Bambi's dad. They know they're going to put up a fight. But they're looking for little Bambi that's just all to themselves, all alone, real quiet, doesn't speak up for themselves, and doesn't look at you when you talk to them. All these different things show that they're fearful, and they could just exude fear. People do that. You could feel it out of them. It's like they look scared. They feel their vibes are scared.
Absolutely.
To you, just being in their presence.
I think a lot of people naturally, I think human instinct, right, when you under attack, you want to avoid, right? You want to dodge.
Sure.
And I think it takes special mindset, it takes special training, practice to be able to know what to do in those situations.
For sure.
And can you, and I know there are so many people out there, I mean, even in my community, my friends, I know they are not trained to grow up to face confrontations. They are trained growing up, say, hey, I want to respect others, let others speak before I do. Even, they try to attack me, maybe give a benefit of the doubt. They didn't mean it. But however, I think some of the times those mindset being perceived as weak, what are some of the things that you can teach the people that are not used to stand up for themselves?
Sure. Well, there's several things first, okay? From a perspective of non-violent confrontation, since most of the times it's really actually a non-violent confrontation in most cases. So I don't think resorting to violence is necessarily the right direction to go. What I feel is it starts with layers. There's layers to self-defense, right? One of those layers is just keeping a distance away from you. Right, a safe distance. Well, if you can't punch or kick me, you can't hurt me right now. And so there's one thing that we call the fence. When I'd be standing up in my fighting stance, I'm keeping my hands open like this. It doesn't look like I'm confrontational, but it looks like I maybe protect myself, or at least my hands are up to stop you from hitting me in the head.
There's something between you and I.
There's absolutely
have to pass the barrier first to get to you.
That's why we call this the fence, because to get to me, say the house, you got to go through the fence to get to the house.
Right.
So just maintaining a distance, a safe distance with my hands up, but then also using my voice in such a way that maybe can diffuse the situation. Now here in Krav Maga, what we use is called command presence. You'd hear police officers maybe saying something to one of the criminals out there when they're getting crazy, and they would say something that would get their attention and hopefully diminish that situation as quickly as possible. It might sound something like this: "Back off now!"
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And just the
that was
fact
totally unexpected.
that my hands and I'm screaming at you and I look intense, would you perceive me as a victim?
No.
Would you perceive me as somebody that would actually defend myself?
At least I will think twice before I want to do something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the point. So verbal self-defense really is a precursor to actual physical self-defense. So I always like to look at it in layers like that. If I can keep a safe distance from you and I can walk away from this situation, fine. I'm not trying to have an ego out here.
Right.
I'm just trying to get out of this situation. If my hands are up and then you start encroaching closer and closer and closer to me, then I'm gonna have to use my voice. But then say you're encroaching my my one arm reach distance. This is my special bubble. I don't just let anybody into this special bubble. I only let loved ones, my family, people I trust into this space. So anybody else that tries to insist on being in that space, that's when I defend myself. And it has to be aggressive, it has to be decisive, and it has to neutralize the threat until they're no longer a threat.
You know, those little techniques I'd never thought of in life. For example, putting a barrier out there and then speak up, and it's just something that we're not used to. Like, at least I'm not used to yelling at people. And I think definitely take some practices. And what do you think there are things we can do at home? You know, those steps, I know, increase your voice. What are some other practices, techniques we can do at home?
Sure, at home, still speaking from the perspective of just using your voice, since I know this is such a powerful weapon.
Right.
What they say is in violent encounters, really only 2% of the times you have to physically defend yourself.
Okay.
So that's pretty interesting. So
only
it leaves
2%.
98% of the times. What does that mean then? Well, that means that I could talk my way out of this situation.
Use my voice.
I can use my voice. Leave me alone. Back off. All those things, and I would go to a much higher decibel to ensure that I was serious. Okay, so, but the best way to actually feel comfortable with that is to go home and look at your mirror. So you're going to look right at your mirror. And this was something I was taught in sales, actually, a long, long time ago. I was probably 20 years old. And the gentleman that taught me, this man's name was Carl Dooley. Actually, #1 salesperson in the world of Kirby vacuum cleaners.
All right.
Crazy, right?
Okay.
Direct sales. And anyway, so I had to knock on people's doors and figure out my way into their house so I could sell them a $2,000 vacuum cleaner. Well, anyway, so this gentleman said this. He says, the best way to get good at sales is to look in the mirror. And so that's here too, because I'm trying to sell you on the fact that, leave me alone.
Okay.
Okay, and if I can look at that mirror and I can put my hands up and I can yell at myself in such a way that makes me believe myself, well, there you have it. I think the bully will believe it just as much as you.
All right, talk to the mirror, guys.
Talk to the mirror.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do wonders.
The mirror never lies, by the way, either. So if you look timid and you don't look as confident as you need to in that mirror, you can actually see it. And that's what somebody else is going to see as well.
We're going to see increasing sale of all the mirrors around the world.
Mirrors got to plug today, baby. So.
Yeah. The next question I have for you is, why do you think our natural reaction to a bully is often do nothing and say nothing?
Well, that's an interesting question that you bring up, because how we're trained in defensive tactics really is the answer to that question. It's actually not necessarily a type of person per se, though it is that type of person, but it's a reaction more than anything else, right? So when confronted with something that is, say it's a very aggressive situation, you're scared to death, your hands are shaking, your palms are sweating, and you are adrenalized at that moment. It's very hard to react in a moment like that unless you're taught to react in a moment like that. So there's three outcomes usually in responses when some of this really intense pressure is upon us, right? The first one is fight. That this person's disposition is to fight back. Well, we kind of deduce it about 20% of the whole world is that person. They're willing to fight back. They don't have to be taught martial arts or anything whatsoever. They're willing to fight back immediately. 80% of the populace, we say, is sheep. They're just going to let it happen to them. Okay, so there's fight. There's flight, meaning I'm running away from this situation. I have the wherewithal in my mind to say, I got to get out of here. And then finally, the worst one of the situations, though, is to freeze. So when you bring up to do nothing, I think of we're freezing at that moment. And that's one of the hardest things to break, because when you freeze, you're petrified. You were literally petrified. You cannot move a muscle. I have been there once before in my life, and it was frightening. Absolutely. And I could do nothing. I knew how to fight, and I couldn't do anything at all. I just got robbed. That's what happened. I didn't do a thing. They picked my pockets. They took it. They let me go, and I was alive. I literally couldn't do anything at all. It was overwhelming. And so when you say, you know, our natural disposition is to do nothing. Yes, most people, 80% of the whole entire world's disposition is to do nothing. So therefore, we have to train in those high stress environments to help us have some action that we can produce that's going to help us in a bad situation like that. So it starts with training. You have to train.
I think training is such an important thing, no matter physically, mentally. And I actually had situations where I got bullied verbally. There's a lot of thoughts going through my mind at the moment. I'd be like, well, maybe they didn't mean it, right? Maybe I understood them wrong. But then later on, with the regret, I didn't speak up and I didn't do anything about it. And then later on, when I get home, I feel angry about myself, why I didn't do that at the time. Sure. I should have stand up for myself. And also there are situations where they were, you know, looking down on other people and I did nothing out there. And now looking back, I have tremendous regret. I wish I did something, but I always know it's never too late to do it now. And not only for myself and also for other people.
And to share that message with other people that might be going through it right now that are much younger than us, right? That haven't really been jaded with living around other people, right? You know, because there's tons of mean people out there.
Absolutely.
You know, but in the same token, we have to know there's more good than bad. And that's what I choose to believe. You know, I choose to believe this world is a great world. We just got to have some grace between us. You know, we have to have some love between us, you know, and that's in the Bible. I'm a Christian man. And for me, it's about the Bible. It's like the first thing that we're taught to do is to love.
Absolutely.
That's it. So it starts there. You know, if we can be that, then there's just not near as many problems. But it starts there. You know, it starts right here in your heart. So, and if we can pursue that conversation with this person first with our heart, not some thought process of what we think this person's about, then I think that's where major headway is going to go. And that's when other people stand up for you because they like you as a human, right? And it doesn't matter about your color anymore. It doesn't matter about anything at all. You're my friend, and I'm willing to defend you. I'm willing to step up for you.
Treat you as human beings always first.
Always.
Not race, not nationalities, not your interests or religions. Human beings first.
Human beings first. You know, if we cut our wrist right now, what color do we bleed?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Bleed red.
Absolutely. Nothing else.
So next question I have for you. I've seen this trend of people picking on the Asian communities, where you probably see on the news a lot of elderly, a lot of women, a lot of even kids being attacked brutally attacked. Why are they picking Asian communities? Do you think, is there a culture behind it? I want to get into the bullies' mind, right? What are their perceptions witnessing the community? They don't know much about Asians. They think Asians are a little more reserved, so maybe it's easy target. And tell me what your understanding of those people.
Well, the psychology I'm going to kind of really roll with is the psychology of a criminal.
Okay.
Because if I'm really trying to choose my victim, I'm going to be very specific on what I'm looking for. I'm going to look for somebody that's distracted. Maybe they're walking down the street and they're just staring at their phone and swiping up and to the left and to the right, and their full gaze and all their attention is on this stupid little phone. That's going to be a victim for me. Because I can sneak up on them, they didn't even know I was coming. Right? So now I can get into that safe space of theirs and they had no reaction to it whatsoever. That's frightening when somebody does that to you.
Right.
So it can really shut you down instantly. Other things maybe to perceive as a criminal looking for a victim is size. Maybe just simply their size. Maybe they're a petite type person, and you're like, well, I'm just way bigger than them. I'm going to just manhandle them.
Okay.
Of course, we could find out quite differently. That may
absolutely.
not be the case now.
Yeah,
so,
because I know you and I about the same height.
Yes,
oh,
sir.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can take down some big guys, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just, it's a perception, right? So that's what a criminal or that's what a bully is looking at. They have a perceived image of what a victim looks like in their mind, and they're searching and hunting it down. It's literally just like a lion looking for a zebra. Okay. It's the same thing. It's like, I'm faster than them, I'm bigger than them, I'm meaner than them, I have teeth, I have claws,
right.
And this guy just kind of like a horse,
right.
Basically. That's all he is. So he can't put up near the fight. So a size thing, it's just a perception, I think, personally, because I have perceived people wrong, and I've learned lessons from these things where you don't underestimate a human being.
Absolutely.
One of the most interesting things that the creator of Krav Maga, Israeli Krav Maga, his name is Emi Sidor.
Okay.
And he said this, and I thought it was one of the most profound statements. This was early on, 15 years ago when I first started Krav. And he said this, he said, the world would be a completely different place if everybody in the world knew Krav Maga, because no one would test it. Because everybody be trained. And it doesn't matter if they're much smaller than you. They could be extremely aggressive, extremely violent if in need of defending themselves. And so I found that as like a very interesting statement. I've always thought about it, and I believe in it. Because if the whole world was trained, would you really want to test it?
Oh yeah, no.
No, why would you? You know that everybody's trained, so you might as well just assume they could defend themselves.
Because I know Krav Maga is a very high level martial arts and can do some serious damage.
Well, it can, but we got to understand where it's coming from, right? So it's coming from Israel's military. This is meant for a soldier to defend themselves in a life and death situation.
Okay.
So what makes Krav Maga very unique, and it's a reverse engineered martial arts, it's the only one in the world, is what they said is this: what are the common problems? How does a human body respond to stress? And that's where they started. So they understood that whenever a body responds to stress, like I said, fight, flight, freeze. Well, certain weird things happen with your body too. And so what Krav Maga tries to make it is to where you use your gross motor skills. Those are the ones that you have just innately. Like if you're scared, hands clench up. You almost can't stop it. If something's coming to your head, you're blocking it or doing something. No one has to teach you this stuff. You just see it and you end up blocking it. That's like a gross motor reaction. Well, that's how your body's reacting under stress. Well, Krav Maga is 100% stuff that's gross motor based. So that's why the self-defense is effective. It's like how our hands are up, how we understand our body and what's capable of our body because we're put through stress.
Okay.
Stress is what people need to be put through to understand how to respond. And really that's absolutely crucial, is stress drills. So other things that bullies are looking for, maybe from the physical perspective, is just looking odd, maybe, maybe I don't have like the finest clothes and, a bully's gonna make fun of you because that's all your parents could afford for you. Other things is maybe a lack of assertiveness. It's just that person's disposition. Do they sit up straight? Do they have good posture? These types of things are things that people look at confident people and they're saying that's what a confident person looks like. Or maybe they just exude fear. And you can feel it coming at them. They're just fearful around anybody. So I would say those are some of the things that a bully is really looking, or me being a criminal for that matter, is targeting. And then you being alone. right? Just that alone, just being alone leaves you more vulnerable. So those are definitely things that, bullies are really, that's how they target. So there's gonna be a few attributes that they're looking for, and if they can get you isolated, then bang, that's probably where it's gonna happen at too. So in that moment, that heightened sense of, it's a very intense situation. It's high stress situation. The chemical cocktail just went off. Your body is shaking and you're just very intense. Even in a moment like that, a gross motor skill is to grab a pencil like this, where the point is coming out like this. You can't grab it like this. It's impossible. This is called fine motor articulation. This is gross motor. And people are used to doing things like that naturally with no one having to teach them. So when confronted by that bully and they're in your face and you're starting to present that fence, this is the most important thing.
Saying all the horrible things about me, for example, just right in my face, making fun of me, making racist jokes, how do I take back?
This is where you have to keep your calm a little bit. This is the hardest part because they're looking for a reaction.
Okay.
Right? What are they looking for? They're looking for me to start bowing my head down a little bit, looking for me to have maybe some tears welling up on my eyes, maybe looking for me to fumble in my words because I can't talk right now because I'm so agitated as well, and I'm in fear. So the things that we need to really focus on is those words, telling them in a very assertive, very aggressive kind of fashion to back off now. That's the only thing a bully's going to understand at that moment is they're in their agitated state. They're not going to understand me talking about, do you not have love at your home with your mother? Okay. That kid hates you right now, and is in your face and trying to cause you pain. You have to, we say this, in Krav Maga we say, the way to stop violence is with a greater threat of violence.
Okay.
Threat is what I said though, right? It's not that I hit you. It's just that it feels threatening when I yell right back at you, right? And if I'm maintaining my hands in a position where it's gonna be really hard to hit me and I'm yelling at you, back off now, get out of my face. I don't want any problems.
Okay.
Does it feel like I'm the guy that's just gonna be sitting there getting hit? No, not at all, but also what just happened too. Everybody's eyes are starting to come and look at this, what's happening right here. And right now I need as many people on my side as possible, and they need to know you're the bad guy, so my hands are open for a reason, right? This doesn't look confrontational. Okay. This looks much more confrontational. So that's why our hands are open in Krav Maga. Now I can stick my fingers in your eyes, I can hit you in the throat, I can punch you from here, I can do all kinds of things with my hands open, just like this. Okay, so it's just a perception. So when that person over here in the parking lot sees us having an argument and he sees my hands up like this and he sees you coming forward with your hands like this, who do you think they think is the aggressor?
Absolutely.
Okay, so perception is very important. And also they say this too, in the crowd, there's more times than not that somebody in that crowd will help you out in that moment. And a lot of times we need that bystander to help us out. Okay. They say it's like bystander intervention, right? Where this bystander, maybe this person right over here is yelling and screaming at you and calling you all kinds of terrible names. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want this guy to get abused anymore. So I'm going to take you. I won't even pay attention to this guy. I'm going to take you. Hey, buddy, I'm here for you. Okay, let's go over here. Let's get away from this this really inhumane human being over here. Let me get you out of this situation and get into safety. Okay. Okay, but I have to bring attention to myself first. Absolutely. Before that person will intervene for me. They have to know something's wrong first.
However, in reality, often I see is people just passing by and thinking about, that's not my business, and I don't want to get involved. And I have so many things to do for the day. I don't want to take my time out of my day and to deal with something might not even benefit me, right? Sure. So how can we train, I wouldn't say train, how can we bring enough awareness to bystanders? What can we do to make them realize we are a community, right? It might not be you at this time suffering, but you lending your helping hand. And one day when you suffer, other people will save you too. So I wanted to really just kind of bring in a point where how we can let everybody understand it's a community. You gotta stand up for others.
Well, I totally agree with that 100%, but the problem is that bystander that's watching what's happening right now, and they're like, oh my God, this is terrible. You know what's happening to them, right?
They might want to help, but they might dare not to.
They might get frozen.
Exactly.
When we're talking about go into freeze mode.
Absolutely.
Because they're encountering their own fears watching. It's actually traumatic to them as well. Okay, that's what I found in my research was fascinating.
Great point.
It was actually traumatic for this bystander because what it made him feel was it made him feel unsure about themselves if they were met with that same situation, that they could even do anything for their own selves. So to me, that was very fascinating. That's why I had really great joy learning more about, this subject matter, is because it gave me new information that I didn't know. But that seems so right though, because if they didn't know what to do, and it goes right back to the three reactions that a person is going to have: fight, flight, or freeze. And they don't have any clue of what to do, they're going to freeze.
So for the technique you just taught, for bystanders, back off!
Oh yeah.
It applied to them too, right?
Oh, it sure does.
So they can get out there,
Absolutely.
say back off,
Yes, that's a great
and it might can save a life.
Yeah, and we call that third-party protection. It's like where I step in, say this is the bad guy right here, and he's harassing you, and I step in right in front of him, and then I say that, get out of our face, back off, whatever it is, and then I'm assisting you and walking you backwards. I'm touching you. I'm touching you so I know where you're at, and I'm keeping my eye on this person the whole time, and I'm walking you back, walking you back, walking you back until I feel we're at a safe distance, and then we're going to take off. But I love that observation. That was fantastic. Would have never thought about it, honestly. I've been doing this a long time. That's crazy. I love that.
Next question I have. Let's say if someone is being isolated, there's no help, right? And they're being attacked. And what are some of the techniques? I know I don't want to go into specifics, just maybe one or two life-saving ones that you can really help the people. They are just, they without trainings, without the strength to actually fight bigger guys, but they need to be safe. They need to survive.
Well, this is the time to defend yourself. This is the time to go for it. Okay. Because everything might be at stake at that moment. You just don't know how bad this could be, You can't ever let yourself get to a point where you're getting knocked so silly and so unconscious that they could just start stomping on your head on the concrete.
You have to fight back.
You have to fight back before that happens, because you have no chance at that point. So you have to put up the fight. It's always going to go back to some of those main few things that we've been talking about the whole time. The fence. You got to put up the fence between you and them, because the hands will deflect shots, cover shots. At least they're closer to your head, and we call this the supercomputer. So I have to protect the supercomputer with everything I got. Everything else you hit me with is not that big of a deal. But if you start hitting me in my brain, I might go unconscious instantly. I have to keep this working the whole time. So that's why the hand's up. And plus, if I feel like you're going to be a threat, you know what? Time to hit them back first. Before they punch, fingers right to the eyes. Okay? Because we know how sensitive eyes are.
Absolutely.
Right? If you're 300 pounds and I stuck my fingers in your eyes, do you think it's going to hurt?
You can't see at all.
Yeah. Will you be blind?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that'll give me enough time to run away.
Absolutely.
Right then and there, while you can't see me where I'm running too, by the way.
Yeah.
Other things that we can do is just the movement of hands. Hey, buddy, I don't want any problems. Hey, calm down. And if they encroach that space, hit them in the throat. It's okay. It's not going to kill them. Okay? It's going to give them esophageal spasm. They're going to go, and then they can't run and chase me anymore, okay? So those are a couple of the main weapons we would use in actual confrontation. Sometimes we call it an educational push, right? So if you're encroaching my space, I actually palm strike you right in the chest and push myself away from you and create more distance.
All right.
But it's a hard shot now, so you can't underestimate how hard you can actually hit with the palm of your hand.
Palm strike. All right.
Another thing that we can look at is the palm strike to the chin.
Oh, I've had that one. It hurts.
So this is a wicked one, right? Because this is going to cause the brain slosh, which creates the knockout. That's where concussion comes from. Accelerate the brain super fast into the skull. Good night. But also, it's a 2-for-1 strike. So as we hit here, what does it look like my fingers can go? Exactly right. Okay, so it's a 2-for-1 shot. That's why I don't like to punch people in the face. I lose the opportunity of getting you twice.
Yep.
Okay, so, and then distance. And if you can make enough noise and enough a situation where people are starting to really look at what's going on in this situation, then hopefully then we might find that there's some brave people out there that are actually going to help assist us as well. But yeah, that's, as far as in a nutshell, those are some of those life-saving techniques we could talk about. I mean, we could talk about kicking them into growing, right? But that usually doesn't stop anybody. You could stomp, kick their kneecap. But that's why I always go back to when I say those things, because to me, that's tertiary. Those are things that don't necessarily shut somebody down.
Absolutely.
But if you can't see me, you can't run after me.
Yeah.
And I know you won't be able to see for at least a minute or two. And your eyes are going to be all teary. And if I get it really good, it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt
for a long time.
Yeah. And then you realize how fast, because my hands are closer to your face than your hands are closer to my face. That's why I can actually beat you to the strike if I feel like you're about to strike me. That's why all this stuff is so important, because I'm ready. I may not look ready. I may look like I'm just saying, please don't hurt me.
Yeah.
What kind of perceive you, from somebody else not hearing us, they might think, hey, please don't, and I'm backing off. That's a perception.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to get everybody on my side.
Absolutely. This is definitely fascinating. When I was little kids, I was really into martial arts, but then, because study gets busy, work gets busy, and I kind of put it off a little bit. But now, after you explained everything, all the techniques, all the mental practice, how you can really involve, not only just stand up for yourself, stand up for others.
Yes.
Make me really want to come back to martial arts, and I think it's great fun.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you have that experience on the floor too, because it's so rewarding.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just for yourself, for getting in shape, whether it's for your own self-esteem and confidence. That's why I love martial arts. I wouldn't do something for 40 years if I didn't like it a whole lot, and how it changes people's lives from little kids to adults, and then the sense of community that we have here at our schools and all premier schools around the country. And we have schools in Canada, we have schools in the UK. There's phenomenal martial artists in our organization, and they carry that same passion as I do. So I'd love to see you I hope I'm at your black belt test, my man. I hope I'm one of your coaches.
All right.
To be one of your black belt coaches.
It really touches my heart. I've been your photographer for the Premier Martial Arts for the past 6 years, I would say.
Yes, sir.
So I almost photographed every single graduations. And then seeing all the little kids growing up, and at the board breaking ceremony, those kids just never gave up, even no matter how hard it gets. Push through, the encouragement, the community. And I think kids can learn that mentality from such a young age. They are going to be tremendous human beings in the future. And every single time, it never gets tired when I photograph those moments. And I feel like those kids growing up, it's just going to be superheroes in some way, honestly.
There are future leaders, is what we like to say, because we're honing the next level of leaders.
Yeah.
Right? I only have a certain amount of time left on Earth, right? I hope it's a long time still. I hope it's at least another 50.
You're practicing martial arts. You're looking great.
Hopefully, I'm like Jiminy Cricket and I can live to 103. But, if that's not the case, I'm going to need to make an impact in this world. And so if I were to live on Earth forever, the way I'm going to do it is through my legacy. It's what I taught somebody, right? And the encouragement that I brought to their life. And maybe this was that fun, safe space that they didn't really have in their life. And I could act to them as somewhat of a father figure to some extent, give them good advice, mentoring them, caring for them, nurturing them. And, and our whole coaching staff is just like that, So we're really blessed with our culture, because it starts with our culture. We love people. Yeah. That's the first thing. And if you look at the culture in our community at this school, you will see everything. We are the melting pot of the United States is right here in our school.
Absolutely, because
it's awesome.
for me, every time I need to set the backdrop out there. You see what those little students are going to do? How can I help you?
Yes.
How can I help you?
Absolutely.
And then what they do is, not only they're super disciplined, they're respectful. They wanted to help, and they have the ability not only to defend themselves, defend for others. What can we ask more?
Well, it's a gift. It's a gift because, first of all, it takes a good parent to bring their child to a space like ours, right? They understand there's some real value we're going to bring to that child's life, and they don't realize it, though. We're going to bring a lot of value to that family's life. They just don't know it yet. But they know there's something that's happening that's working for their kid, and they decide, okay, let's stick with this a little bit. And then they start going through some of our different programs. We have our basic training program or a black belt training program. But when we start seeing some amazing changes is when they start going to our premier program, to our leadership program. Because that's the kids that you see that are always helping, is their leadership. And they're literally handpicked. It's like, who has a servant's heart? That's what it's based on. It's like, who has a servant's heart? Who is out there just naturally helping people? Because that's a leader. To me, they're doing it naturally. And it's like, that's the next level of coaches out there. That's the next level of teachers, is those that want to do it and they do it naturally. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. And I love the fact that we can change a child that would just cry at everything. I've had them. Okay, I'll never forget. There was one child in particular that got ingrained in my brain. And he was an awesome kid, but he didn't know how awesome he was. Every time we had a game, just a game, he didn't win the game because he was a big boy, okay? And he would just cry. He couldn't tie his shoes. I remember my wife tied his shoes one day right in front of his mother. And she was like, boy, tie your shoes. And he was just cry again. He had no self-esteem whatsoever. That child eventually became a black belt with us over a 6-year period of time. That kid is killing grades, ultra super confident. The boy has a beard now. I mean, my goodness, he's grown up so much.
Wonderful.
But to see a child go from absolutely sadness because he can't perform, and then to go into this place where he's giving a performance in front of 250 people on a graduation because he has to show his form.
It must be nerve-wracking. Such a big crowd.
Absolutely. And to go out there and smash it, instead, boy, that's a transformation.
And I think it's such a confidence boost opportunity.
Big time.
And speaking on that, I really want to touch on the topic. I can't speak with other community, but as an Asian community, we grow up, I would say my parents pushed a lot of pressure on me. Very high bar, high standards. And I was constantly compared to someone that's better than me, right? I understand where they're coming from. That should be your goal. That should be where you set yourself as. That's where you need to reach out to.
Sure.
However, in a different way, opposite side effect is it really destroyed my confidence in many ways. It took years to rebuild. And right now, I'm healed, confident, proud of who I am. But in my early days, it really didn't help me. It really didn't help me speak up. It really didn't help me to speak up for others. So I was still seeking for myself. So now I have a daughter. I want to make sure that I can lay a better path for her. I love my parents tremendously.
Sure.
It just some techniques maybe they can improve. I want to make sure I don't put on so much pressure on my kids. I want to make sure I boost their confidence. So I want you to tell me some of the ways the parents may be able to learn from, even observing the martial arts. How can they observe to boost their kids' confidence?
Sure. That's a really great point that you brought up because, I had a similar childhood where my parents put a tremendous amount of pressure to be great, right? And I remember I was way better at tennis than they were. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm way better at tennis than they are. I could smoke them on the court. And I'm a little kid. And then I remember this weird affinity moment because I played, the high level tennis, USTA in Texas, and they were always pushing me towards this goal, like being this great tennis player. And then I always remember, I was like, they're not even that good. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then they're pushing me to be like some great tennis player. And I did enjoy tennis, but they also stole all the joy away from tennis from me. Forcing me into private lessons all the time. I remember I stayed I'm blessed that I had a decent life, but my parents sent me to a country club for the whole summer. Like they would drop me off there every day, pick me up in the evening times when they got back from work, and I'm just drilling tennis the whole time. Literally, I'd spend 8 hours a day playing tennis, hitting against the wall, hours and hours a day, have my private lessons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was just priming me up to be the best version I could be in tennis. But did they really ever ask me if I really wanted to be that competitive in tennis? I enjoyed tennis very much, and they stole all my joy away from tennis.
So they basically ignored your feeling.
Yeah, because they knew I had talent, and they wanted to push that talent to make me as good as I could be and maybe have an opportunity down the road. They probably did it for all the right reasons.
Right.
But, a lot of times us as a parent have to understand, it's like, what does our child really want? Do we even ask? Do we ask?
Or do we ask, do we really listen?
Oh man, and most parents probably don't listen,
Yeah.
honestly,
Because
because
they think they're right.
they're the authoritarian.
Exactly.
They run the roost. And especially when you're talking about cultural families now. You know, we both have culture in our families.
Absolutely.
And so when we think about that, you know, a lot of times male is dominant.
And you see
Very
your cultural
dominant.
family background, which is
Hungarian and Spanish, or Spanish, and so you know, so you have these weird interworkings. You know, in the Latin community, there's a machismo thing for men. I am the father, and I'm God basically in this household. You know,
Right.
And so so that's coming from the Hispanic culture. I don't know if that's, you know, from your culture as well, but I've known, you know, all my life I've been raised around people from Korea, from Vietnam, from Laos. Those were a lot of my friends when I was growing up. I remember going to their homes. It really caught me really weird. It was so weird because I had Mexican friends, I had white friends, I had black friends. I have every kind of friend there is, right? And I remember going for the first time. It's Ton. And so, we're invited, my whole family's invited. Well, actually before this, okay, I think it was that way. It was like my whole family was invited to eat egg rolls.
Okay.
And this woman made the most incredible egg rolls of all time. Like,
Yeah.
I've never had one that
homemade
good.
are the best.
And that was like, this is like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know no restaurants had that stuff around here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is incredible. And then we became friends, right? And then I remember going to their house again, and everything is super quiet. Like, and then I was like, you know, I was a little loud because
Yeah.
I'm a pretty loud kid. And he's like, you know, we can't be that quiet. We can't be that loud in here.
Yeah.
And he's like whispering this. And I was like,
Yeah.
why don't we go outside?
Yeah.
And then he was a totally different human being outside.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's really weird. It's like he's not himself at home.
exactly.
And he's some different human that's probably who he actually wants to be and who he actually is. And so for a parent, what we have to understand with our kids is they're not us.
Yep.
First and foremost, they're not us. Okay, they're gonna have their own gifts, they're gonna have their own weaknesses, they're gonna have their own struggles, they're gonna have their own successes, right? We're there to guide them through the process, right? We're trying to steer them from bad decisions, right? But also in the same token, you gotta edify and build your child. It starts at home. End of story. And if you have a non-confident child, it's probably the parent's fault, honestly.
Absolutely.
Because who should be the number one cheerleader for that child? Mom and
parents,
dad.
your
Mom
family.
and dad all
Absolutely.
day. And if that kid is struggling with this, hey, I'm not gonna like paint a picture that's fake for my kid. I want to be realistic. And I said, you know, so maybe they're not doing so great on this. And it's like, hey, let's put in a little bit more work. Maybe it's just that you have to put in more work than somebody else that maybe this is easy for. But encourage that, not say, damn, how many times are we gonna get a C here?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm struggling with this. You're not even helping me at home?
Yeah. I
You know,
already
what does the
suffer so
parent
much at
expect?
school, and the teacher give me a hard time.
Yeah, and then you get
Coming
even
back home, it's even more suffer.
Yes, and anyway, so as a parent, we have to understand that that's not the way to perceive that situation. It's like our kid needs help, right? That's what we're here for. I mean, God gave us our child as a gift.
Right.
So we need to take care of that gift. We need to nurture that gift. We need to help it grow up. We need to support it all the rest of its life. Because really, and you have a little itty bitty baby.
Yeah.
I got some big babies now.
Yeah.
And they're never going to stop being your baby.
Absolutely.
So we need to treat them in such a way. In the Bible, we talk about, you know, if you treat your child so sternly and so like very much of a control over that child, you may lose them when they get older.
Absolutely true.
And
And that's
that was-
one of my fear too, because I know I grow up with high standard. Without even noticing, I become someone kind of like my parents, setting high bars on things. But one thing different than them is I consciously notice I'm doing that. So I wanted to put a lot of effort to making sure my daughter doesn't go through the same thing. I'm not putting too much pressure on them. I want to be their cheerleader. I want to be their support. And it's still a long way to go. But I think the first step is to realizing I'm doing such a thing to my kids, and then try to make sure to be a better parent.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up because really, you know, it's an old saying is like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That means you're going to be very much like your father. Because who else did you have to look for, to in your formative years? We learn so much in that adolescence age that it's not coming out of us, it's inside of us. And then as we get older, because we don't know how we use it, and then as we get older, then it's there. You're like, wait a second, you know, I have some of those same tendencies my dad does.
Yeah.
And so I remember going through some work, and it was called Breaking the Chains.
Okay.
Right? And it was more biblical based, but it was very enlightening because it taught me that I'm going to be very much like my dad. For sure, I am. Even if I don't want to be, I'm still going to be just like him.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, I got to break those chains somehow and be able to be a different human to my children when and if I ever had those children. Because, I mean, my process of healing has been going on since probably 26 years old. So this is a 24-year journey of healing, you know, and I'm still not over it. Yeah. So, yeah, the repercussions of what our family and, you know, what that environment is, it could take your whole, some people don't ever recover.
Very true.
You know, and so I feel for them very much so. I mean, we're intelligent guys, we're educated guys, you know, we're using our mind, we're analytical, and we understand there's an issue.
Yeah.
Some people don't have those skills and won't be able to understand those are issues and can't change those in the future. So we're blessed to be able to make those changes and to make it conscious.
Absolutely.
You know, so, and then we have to always continue to be like that as well, because those negative ones come back. Yeah. They do. They'll just pop up out of nowhere.
No matter what, like it or not, they creep back in.
Yes. Yeah. Most definitely.
So my next question for you is, what are the consequences of not defending yourself?
You know, what I found, because I'm so glad you asked me to do this, because it helps me research and know the subject matter a lot better than I previously did. That was nice. It was mind-blowing, actually. When a kid or if somebody's being bullied for an extended period of time, there's so many debilitating things that happen in this person's life. It's really unbelievable. Everything from depression, anxiety, sleep problems. They can't get to sleep. They start failing grades in school. They pull back from society even more and more and more, isolate their own selves. And so no one can help them when they're, and cutting.
It makes so much sense.
Cutting. And that's been prevalent for girls, is cutting.
Yeah. That
they cut themselves and abuse their own selves. For boys, what they were saying that this can culminate into them becoming a violent criminal.
And it's all origin from...
And they were the one bullied. And on the flip side, the bully, there's negative consequences for them too.
Yeah.
It's like historically get worse grades. They end up going into criminal activity. You know, they burn every bridge they possibly ever had, and they have no one in their life. You know, and then, you know, what I thought was kind of interesting, or it's not even interesting, it's horrible, but you know, it went down to a level of suicide. When you think about a consequence of being bullied.
Absolutely.
They've had so much. We've heard it in the news, the cyberbullying.
Over and over.
What I read about cyberbullying.
It's getting worse.
Yes, it's because you're not looking at my face to say it to me.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And then when you're on the internet forever, and then people can share. And if you want to embarrass someone nowadays, it's easier than ever.
Oh yeah, for sure. And because back in my day, it would happen in the gym.
Yeah.
Or it happened in the church parking lot. It's going down.
Yeah.
Right? But you had to face that person. There was no ifs,
now there's no consequences.
Now,
anybody can be a keyboard warrior.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's what they're saying. It's actually the effects on these children and people that are being bullied right now because of cyberbullying in particular is worse than it's ever been.
True.
Because as I mentioned before, you don't have to face the music.
Yeah.
And you could get hundreds, if not thousands of people to just bash this person relentlessly, no matter where they turn. They have no one to look to anymore. The one thing they have the most interest in, which is their electronics, is just beating them up every moment of the day. And so I couldn't even imagine what that pressure would feel like. It was bad enough when I was a kid. I was like, I couldn't even imagine to a magnitude of thousands of people.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to deal with that. Ooh.
You know, so yeah, but that's where we have to control things too. You know, that's why, you know, for my kids, you know, they have a phone, but they're not just allowed to go on Facebook and stuff like that. My 20-year-old is finally allowed to go on Facebook. Why? Because all the stupid stuff that's happening, all the abuse of other people out there, and who knows what other links it could send you to expose you to things I don't want my kids exposed to.
Absolutely. So, you know, one very interesting thing I've noticed is bully at school. Oftentimes, they are the popular kids. Why is that?
Well, you know, that's hard to answer, honestly. when I think about it, I have to just say that those kids surrounding him are scared of him.
Yeah.
They're just as scared as everybody else. And you know what? What do you want to be? Do you want to be an ally, or do you want to be a foe of this guy? Which one do you want?
So they pick the side of the bully simply because they don't want to be a victim.
Yes, and that was interesting because that hurt those kids later on in life.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what side of the fence to be on, right? Okay, well, this guy scares me. Okay, well, that person's being abused. It's like how hard that decision is going to be made.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, okay, well, I don't want to get beat up.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just going to go side with this guy because at least it's safer not being against him. You know, so I think that could only be the reason. You know, I remember seeing in high school as like some bullies and really just mean people who had all these friends, and I have like a handful of friends. And I was like, I just didn't quite understand it. I have never quite understood that.
So then it makes me think, right? Maybe initially there's one bully, and then the rest of the crowd simply don't want to be bullied to become a victim. They may join that side.
Sure.
And then as time goes on, they become the bully.
They could.
And then the crowd of bullying culture just grow bigger. How can we reverse that?
Well, that's going to be a tough choice.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a really tough choice at that moment. It's like, do you break away from the solidarity and the so-called fake, probably friendship that you have with the bully?
Exactly.
Do you? Because then you're maybe alienated away from that group. All you wanted is to be accepted. That's it. That's all we ever want.
Exactly.
Right? So that's all we want. And, you know, to be accepted, a lot of people just change. They become fake. They're not even themselves anymore.
Exactly.
Just to be a part of that group. And since I know they're faking it, I know they can't sustain that. So I don't think being around a bully per se makes a person a bully or makes them eventually become a bully.
Okay.
I think it can have influence on them, but I think they're only there because they're more fearful than anything else. I think that's the higher reasoning, and could it like, you know, actually make this child maybe more of a bullying behavior? Yeah, it could. It really can. But I think as people we got to remember, we're kind of growing up and growing apart.
Right.
In many ways, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I know if I'm doing something that is not really me, I can only do it for so long. And then it's gonna change. Because I can't keep up the charade. I can't keep up the show anymore. It's not me. And so I feel if people were following a bully, I feel they fall away from the bully.
Okay.
Over time is what I feel happens. And I could be wrong. But I have to think, you know, from the goodness of people, is like how much of this clown over here beating up on people and making people feel horrible about themselves, how much can I take of it? And I don't even do it to people. Right? So it's like I feel there would be a falling away process more than I'm going to get behind this guy because I like people making people's lives miserable. I don't think people are really wired that way. Some are, for sure. But I say it's still in that 20%.
Right.
You know, because we say 10% are predisposed for violence for good. 10% are predisposed for violence for evil. And then the 80% won't do anything. So that's kind of where I'm coming from as far as a self-defense perspective.
Very interesting.
It's an analysis of really how people react. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just an unfortunate issue, and you know, I don't know if it's getting better. I know there's programs in every school, but you know, they'll never teach a program at their schools that will really address physical self-defense.
You know, be honest, I think you brought out a great point. I really think martial arts should be a curriculum in the school that can teach kids how to deal with these real life issues.
Most
and
definitely.
it's so bigger than the educator can imagine. It's almost more important than the actual textbook classes, chemistry or math, because you're teaching life. You're teaching kids how to deal with those real life mental issues. It's just my thought, you know.
Well, I fully agree with you. I mean, there are some programs that are in the I think it's in the high schools, actually. It's a Kickstart program, and I know for a fact they have one in Carrollton. I don't know the name of the school, the high school, but I know the coach over there. And they're connected with Chuck Norris.
Okay.
So Chuck Norris is the guy that made this program happen. But they're teaching those high schools in class martial arts.
Right.
Which I love it.
Yeah.
You know, there's certainly not near enough of it. You know, but I would say that it's so important for somebody to have this confidence in themselves that they can defend themselves. That's going to permeate everything else in their life, right? Because as we mentioned before, when somebody's getting bullied, what are some of the negative outcomes that happen from that? Failing grades.
Right.
Just that alone. Well, they're in school. That's the only thing they have to do.
Oh, yeah.
So the grades are the most important thing at that moment,
Absolutely.
right? So if it's just ruining their whole outlook of what can happen in their life because I can't get my grades up because I'm scared of this kid, he's harassing me every day at school, I don't even want to go to school. You know, that's just that one alone can make a huge difference. You know, and then you start thinking about the depression, the anxiety. Don't we have enough problems as it is?
Oh, yeah.
We don't need somebody else to give us even more
The list
problems.
can go on. Yeah, I
Come
know you
on.
hear more.
So we need to
Yeah.
give our kids these tools. I mean, it's imperative as far as I'm concerned. I can teach self-defense in 5 minutes, honestly, because there's just going to be a few things I show somebody because I know that's the nuts and bolts of what self-defense is. That's what I even showed you.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's very easy things to do.
Yeah, I
and
love it.
extremely effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, so it doesn't have to be about the martial arts. It just has to be about the person's confidence.
Absolutely.
More than anything else.
Absolutely.
And it's really that's the point. And if we are a confident person, we do have a tendency to stand up to somebody because you know what? More than likely, no one's giving us any grief.
Yeah.
We don't look like a victim. We look like a confident person. We shake hands. We have eye contact. We have good posture. These things are construed to be somebody that is actually confident.
Absolutely.
And if we could just learn the body language, that alone is going to help massive, right? So it's just small things can make a big, big difference.
Love it.
Sure. Yeah, the last thing our last resort is violence. That is always going to be the last resort because that means I had no choice.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to go violent, I'm going to be extremely violent. So,
Absolutely.
and that's because you have to at that point. You don't
Yeah.
have any more choices.
I remember my dad when I was a kid, and he told me, when you encounter a bully, you know, give them 3 warnings. Just make sure, you know, back off, you know, you're hurting me. Give them 3 warnings. And after that, you don't beat them down on the floor begging you, you're not my son. That's what my dad told me. It's just very something it's not gonna be on video, but I'm just like, I wanna tell you, that's what he said to me. It's kind of funny.
Well, my mom said that
Yeah.
she put me in boxing at 10,
Yeah.
right? Because she says, you're not going to be a very big kid or
Yeah.
big person.
Yeah.
So you're going to know how to defend yourself.
Yeah.
That's how it was. I mean, because she was like, well, what sport should I put you in to learn how to defend yourself? Well, it was boxing. That was my first sport. So being a chubby kid,
Yeah.
getting beat in the head all kinds of ways, having to run when I hated running,
Yeah.
all these things that they're trying to hone you to be some boxer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just getting beat up every day. What's this, Mom? But I mean, how is this supposed to help me defend myself?
Right.
But it definitely,
Yeah.
well, you know, and it's a blessing that she even put me into anything like that at all, because from that point on, it's been a history with martial arts ever since then.
Yeah.
So it was actually, she set me up for my future and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
So, but it was painful.
Yeah.
It was disheartening at times and very humbling. But, you know, when you're humbled, you can grow
Absolutely.
tremendously from the place of humility. So,
Yeah.
and then it makes you understand that, you know, maybe you need to put in some more work and maybe this is not as bad as you thought it was. And, you know, maybe there's going to be some real benefits that I can get down the road. I can't see them yet, but maybe there's something there. There's a little saying that we have in Krav Maga, and it's this. You know, don't mistake my kindness for weakness.
Yeah,
Like I'm
exactly.
always going to walk around kind, loving, love
Absolutely.
people, you know, trying to do my best for you. I try to serve you, whatever you need, man. I'm here for you. But I'm going to be like that until the moment I have to be violent. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's going to go then. And it's just like you have this switch.
Yeah.
And the switch makes you go from nice human being,
Yeah.
but I'm also an animal switch. And I can become a very violent animal if
It
necessary.
resonates with me a lot is because I am always kind to people. I'm always willing to sacrifice and give up more. And however, oftentimes I can't count how many experiences and people perceive my kindness as weakness. And I always, like you said, I have to turn the switch. And people are like, oh wow, well, I didn't see you have that different side. Oh wow, you're me. And almost I have to, in a way, show a little bit of aggression, and they're starting to learn how to back off. And there's so many ways, no matter that's in sports, in workspace, I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I don't like to be someone with aggression, but sometimes that's the only way for them to back off. This question that I always wanted to ask: why is it so important to believe in your own strength and in your mental grit instead of just waiting for someone else to save you?
Sure. I mean, it's so important. I mean, you have to believe in yourself in the first place. I know a lot of people that have low self-esteem, but they're going to have to learn how to get something that makes them feel good about themselves, right? Just believe in yourself. Confidence it's like a muscle, right? And that's why it's imperative for parents to instill all this confidence in your kids, because, just like a muscle, if you work on it over and over again, what happens to that muscle? It grows, gets stronger, right? So I feel, it's the parent's role right from the get-go to instill that confidence. But if we find ourselves in this place that we're not feeling it so much, you're gonna have to do things that edify you, that build you up. Read the right books. You're gonna have to do something, because I don't know what it's like not having confidence. I've had moments in my life where I didn't find that confidence, but overall I've been a very confident person my whole life. So it's hard for me to answer that question. But I know when in those times that, really had nobody else but myself, then I had to just grind it out. Sometimes, it takes years to get to this place where you do believe in yourself, but you have to how are you going to make it on earth if you don't believe in yourself?
Right.
How are you going to get a job if you don't even believe you can get a job? How are you going to ever defend yourself if you don't think you can actually defend yourself?
You have to believe.
You have to believe something, so you have to just start internalizing in yourself. Like, one of the big things here at our school is we call ourselves a yes, I can school.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. What? Yes, I can do anything I set my mind to. That's the culture of our school. I want everybody to understand is that, first of all, you got to tell yourself. You got to trick this.
Absolutely.
This is like the mental heckler. It's always back there telling you how unworthy you are. For whatever weird reason, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's maybe what my parents were telling me. Oh, you're stupid. This, and it's just like this role that's going on in my mind. Well, it doesn't affect me nearly like it used to when I was young. I'm over all that stuff. But in the same token, what are you going to roll into your mind instead? Yes, I can. I am good enough. I am smart enough. I can defend myself. You start talking to yourself and programming yourself. This is software.
Yeah.
We got to look at it as software. Can it be changed?
Yeah.
Most definitely can be changed.
Absolutely.
It can be reprogrammed. And that's the key, is like, if you're in the stage where you don't have that confidence, you're gonna have to reprogram yourself to find that confidence again. Or maybe you never had it. But you're gonna have to go to somebody that is confident and understand. Ask them, like, how do I become more confident? Maybe they even have some ways for you to become more confident. Maybe go to the gym and hit the workout a little bit. Read some good books that can help you expand your mind. Maybe it's all about self-improvement.
Yeah.
I read self-improvement books every day of my life. Or just having a circle of friends that can support you at those times when you're feeling low.
And parents.
And your parents, most definitely.
Most important, yeah.
But especially when you're younger, it's all about the parents. It's all about that secondary family. That's how we look at Premier Martial Arts. It's kind of like their secondary family. They're going to spend a lot of time, many years with us.
Lifetime friendship.
Yeah, and sometimes we're blessed to have that opportunity to have a lifetime friendship. And even if they're not here anymore and they're gone, we still communicate.
Absolutely.
And so that means our family is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, huge. We've touched so many lives, and that's been the biggest blessing, is to impact people's lives for the betterment of themselves, their families, and their community. And I feel we do that enough times, and especially with Premier Martial Arts, because we're going to be worldwide. How many lives get transformed, and then when they grow up, what happens with the world at that point? Because a lot of the messages we talk about. We talk about the motivation of that kid, but we know motivation is fleeting.
Yep.
So we got to build their true confidence up in their heart, about themselves, and their mind, because the mind is the one that will slip us up the most. Because it's a tricky thing. The mind is a very tricky thing. So we got to be understanding that we're always programming it for the betterment of ourselves. It doesn't matter what somebody else said about us. Tell yourself something good about yourself. find something about that person that they're doing good, even if everything else is terrible. Right? We do this in the school all the time.
Yeah.
And this is how I teach our instructors, is because I can pick out 100 things that kid is doing wrong.
Exactly.
I can really easily actually do that, because I'd get so nitpicky and I'm looking for perfection.
Yeah.
And what I realize is, you know what, that technique is, it's gonna need some improvement. However, I tell you what, that kid's kia and their intensity is just off the charts.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm gonna find good.
Yeah.
And then I wanna make a help. Right, so we call it kind of like a compliment sandwich. Is that I'm going to say, hey, I love your intensity. Okay, hey, what I want you to do is I want you to point your toes when you throw that kick, and then rechamber your leg and put it back down. Keep up the good work. So I gave him a confidence booster, get the critique, and then I layered it with a good job, keep it up. Right, so good. It wasn't bad, but it was corrective.
I see a positive reinforcement cycle. Just keep going.
It's a true
keep
cycle.
rolling.
That's exactly how we teach. That's what builds. That's what parents need to do. It's not, how many times do I have to tell you to do it this way, the right way?
Exactly.
It's like, how about ease into that? It's like, you know, I love that you're even doing this with me, son. Makes me so proud that you're actually joining me on something that I love to do. I love that you're following my footsteps. You know, now how we can maybe be better at it is we're gonna have to do a little bit more practice. Do you understand me, son? Yeah, okay, well, hey, keep up the great work. You're destined for greatness. How would that work for your own son? Because those are the types of things I tell my son when he's here helping me out, because I'm one of those fortunate dads that has their 20-year-old son that actually wants to work in the family business and be beside his dad. I promise you, that's a huge, huge blessing. I left home at 16 to not ever want to come back again. So see the differences, but this is how I was taught this, and I needed to leave it, and he's taught, he is loved. He is right where he needs to be, and he's getting all these opportunities, and he's surrounded with love. And it's like, that's why my 20-year-old wants to be at home. Whereas me, a 16-year-old child, wanted to be gone. So that's a big juxtaposition of what life is, you know, how life has turned out. And, you know, to be that kid that was the 16-year-old kid wanting to leave home, to seeing my 20-year-old and my 14-year-old at home loving life and having good life and being confident and just being the best version of themselves, it's just the biggest blessing there is. That's why I live for that.
You know, everybody go back home and look into the mirror and say to yourself, yes, you can. Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yes, I can. There you go.